Heyo, and welcome back to my channel. Last week I was talking about how I used to have this impression that God could only be close to me, I could only feel His Spirit when I was doing special spiritual things, and that the best use of my time, the way to make Him a part of my everyday life, was to be reading my Bible and praying all day long. And that anything outside of that, He was disappointed in me for not being spiritually strong enough and mature enough to just read my Bible all day and enjoy that. When really the truth is that there may be a lot of other ways that He wants me to experience Him. Like, He created this world, He created life for me to live, and He wants to meet me there. It's not this necessary evil. And He wants to meet me in special ways, and I feel like I was the one limiting how I could experience Him by saying, no, it has to be only through these specific things. But now I'm learning to look for Him in everything in my life and try to experience Him in all these different things and listen for His Spirit telling me what I need and the ways that I need to experience Him each day and what's actually going to help me, whether that's going outside if I'm starting to feel a little bit in my head and depressed, or just playing music on the piano, trying to write another song, listening to worship music, listening to happy music. Like, He knows what I need, and I'm trying to surrender that to Him and make Him part of those little decisions of how to experience Him every day. And my tangent thought that I wanted to talk about this week of how to make God part of my everyday life and how I know that I'm doing that is I've always struggled with, feeling like I had to be thinking thoughts about God in order for Him to be part of my life, and that, I needed to be constantly praying throughout the day. Like, that was my ideal, is that basically He was the one I was thinking about and the one person I was talking to. And I feel like He was encouraging me really recently that how I know that I'm keeping Him a part of it is by consistently returning to Him, like experiencing these things and then telling Him how I felt about it and like kind of debriefing with Him, and then doing something else for a few hours and then like remembering and coming back to Him. Like, anytime anything comes up in my heart, bringing it to Him and talking to Him about it. But that doesn't mean that I have to constantly be talking to Him, because oftentimes, I mean I'm a girl, I can talk a lot, but I don't always have a ton of stuff to say. At some point I run out and I'm like, well, there's just nothing else to say until something else happens to me. Oops, sorry, I think the baby's crying. Let me grab her. Okay, and we're back. But just like encouraging me to bring things to Him as it happens, to make Him a part of my processing just my everyday life and bringing all of my emotions and thoughts to Him just decently soon. And just making that my first instinct is whenever I am feeling something or thinking about something, like, try to talk it out with Him, just bring it to Him. Because it makes me think of something that my sister has said to me, that when you see someone that you haven't seen for a very long time, like an old friend, you'd think that you would have the most to talk about. And yet, it's when you see your best friend that you haven't seen for like a day that you end up having a lot more to talk about. People that you regularly interact with and are always bringing everything to, they are the ones that you actually can talk the most about, rather than someone you haven't seen in forever that you're trying to catch up with. Even though there's more stuff to catch up on. And I think the reason that is, I've definitely experienced that, is when I'm with someone that I haven't seen in a really long time, I think, okay, what are the really big life updates? Because if they're like, how are you? I'm like, well, let me think over the last 2 years. Well, I got married and I had a baby. What have you done? You're like, well, I started college. It's like, okay, cool. Now what? Because when someone I haven't seen in a long time asks how I'm doing, I don't go into the random little details of like how I'm doing that day or what I'm thinking about and feeling, because I'm trying to give them the broader context. But then like, it's so hard to go anywhere from just those bullet points. It's easier if you're with a friend who knows you, has been caught up on the context of your life, on all the random little things you're thinking about and doing every day, so then you can just be like, oh yeah, and then I went to work and like this coworker said something and then made me think this, and we had this conversation, and then I was feeling this, and then I was like, I had a stomach ache, and then like you're telling them all like the random little details, and there's so much more to talk about when you're zoomed in so much further. There's this whole variety of options to talk about. Whereas if I'm trying to catch someone else up to that level of my life, it just feels too overwhelming, because I'm like, how can I tell you the moment to moment things that I felt and learned and experienced in the past 2 years? Like, that's just too much. So I'm gonna rein it back and just tell you like, I got married and had a kid. And then it's like, all right, good to see you, nice talk. And so I feel like that's what God's been challenging me to, is just to keep Him at the forefront of my mind and bring things to Him enough that when I talk to Him, it feels like picking up a conversation right where I left off. And it isn't like, oh, well, I didn't tell you about this thing when I was feeling it 2 weeks ago, and then all the context leading up to here, so like, why would I tell you about where I am now? Like, it's too overwhelming to try to catch you up on all of it. So I'm just gonna say, I'm good. Nice to see you. Like, I want Him to be caught up on the context of my life, so that when any little thing happens that adds to any of these things I'm thinking about and learning, I can immediately bring it to Him and feel that comfortability of like, we've talked about this. Like, He has all the context of what's going on, and it is just picking up that conversation where we left off. The last time we were talking about this, the last time I was feeling this. I'm adding all the pieces of my life in the context with Him. I'm not leaving Him out of it and forgetting about Him. Because I felt that sometimes of like feeling like I should pray about something, and I'm like, oh man, but if I pray about it now, like there are all these times when I was feeling feeling this need even stronger in the past, and all these times where I was like so desperate for it. And I feel like if I pray now, I need to dredge up all of the emotion of all of those times and like have this super emotional pouring my heart out to catch up on what I didn't do last time, how I didn't bring it to him last time, and that just feels too overwhelming. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that amount of emotion right now. I don't have time for that. I don't have the emotional capacity for that. So I'm just gonna, you know, like brush it aside and just not pray about it and not try to bring it up with him, which with God is stupid because he's the one that's been there the whole time. He knows the context of our lives. He knows exactly what we're feeling about things and thinking about things better than we do. He sees the big picture. He's been there for every moment. He knows every thought of mine that goes on. Whereas with anyone else, I have to take the time to express that. And so it's dumb to feel like, oh man, there's too much catching up to do. You know, I'll just like forget about praying about it. He understands exactly how I'm feeling about it, how I wish I had prayed about it in the past, but how in this moment, I only want to pray about it a little bit, 50%. And like, that's okay. But yeah, I need to start somewhere and then go from there. And yeah, I want to make God enough a part of my life that's how it feels. It was that comfortability of like catching up with a friend weekly where you do have so much to talk about because they are invested in the little details of your life. You know that they care about the little things that you're thinking about and learning. That's what I want my prayer life to be like. That's what I think it looks like to know that I'm making God a part of my everyday moments. And so yeah, that's my encouragement of like start somewhere and just like start talking to God about stuff. Don't let him become lost in the chaos until it gets to this huge thing that it just feels like way too much to talk about, and so you're just like just forget it and don't even try to make him a part of it. It's never too late. Bring him your heart as it is, wherever you are, and yeah, go from there. I think we can all get better at making God a part of our everyday lives, and we'll all be so much more encouraged by that, to have that consistency, that regularity of talking to him just like I would my best friend and telling him about the details because he cares about the details. He loves me, he knows me perfectly, but he wants to hear it from me too. Like he wants me to be establishing that relationship with him. So yeah, I think that was the final remnants of my thought, and thank you for watching, and goodbye until more interesting things happen.